Hi, everybody. This is Miriam. I'm a real estate agent here in Southern California, serving the Inland Empire. I am really happy to have Marty Stout and Emily Ellison with Go Roof Tune Up with us today. We're going to be talking about one of those things that are very often neglected in our homes or on our homes. It's the roof. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Good, thank you.
Good, good. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about the name, Go Roof Tune-Up. That's such a unique name because it's almost like a call to action too kind of name. Can you tell me how you guys came about having that?
Well, you hit it on the head. When we started this company, our goal was to develop an inspection program that would then lead to a repair program that we could warranty. And we worked really hard at trying to figure out the exact piece that would help people understand the value of what we could do. And we kept going back to this name Tune-Up. And so instead of calling it, something roofing, which is very generic, we decided to go with the name Go Roof Tune-Up because we believe that virtually every roof is repairable. And if you do what we call a tune-up, then we can give a nice warranty along with that covers the entire roof and take that pressure point off of people without re-roofing the house.
That's very good. So when you guys started this business, how long ago was that and how long have you been in the industry?
Well, we started this business about 12 years ago. We first originally started researching it about 12 years ago, and we actually launched probably about 10 and a half years ago, something like that, with the goal of repairing residential roofs. I started in the industry as a boy. My dad was a roofing contractor, and I got my first contractor's license in 1981, and have been roofing virtually my whole life. And Emily, how about you?
With Go Roof Tune-Up for almost 10 years, but in the roofing industry off and on for the last 15.
Excellent, very good. So let's go ahead and talk about home inspections because I have a question for you. In real estate, there is a time period for buyers to do inspections, right? And so, but those inspections shouldn't be just for when they're purchasing a home. That's something that could probably be done throughout the life of a roof. So my question to you would be, what is the value of a roof inspection and what will that report tell me?
So two points to that, are two great points that you make, Miriam. Typically we get calls from people that are buying a home. Most typically, the home inspector has put a question mark on his report that something needs to be looked at by a roofing professional. And so we might get called out in that situation when there's a transactional process going on with a home. Most home inspectors won't get up on a roof and they just kind of give a superficial look. Something doesn't look right. So really with a roof, you need to have a roofing professional look at it. We don't recommend that homeowners get up on their roof. It's dangerous. But if you have a roofing professional look at your roof and give you a summary of basic elements of your roof that you might want to look at, and those basic elements will be, how long will my roof last? What's the cost to re-roof my roof at that point when I need to put a new roof on it, and what kind of repairs can I do to get me without worry out to that point. So you may be in a situation where your roof has 10 or 12 years of useful life in it or longer, but you might have some minor details that need to be adjusted or taken care of right now, like flashing details and things that might need to be taken care of today. And in the case with our tune-up process, we would do those repairs for you and provide you with a 5-year warranty on the entire roof, not just the area of the repair, but the entire roof. And if I could go back to the beginning, when we first started thinking about this concept, I actually pulled my dad out of retirement and we brainstormed together. And we literally went door to door in random neighborhoods asking people, what is your biggest concern with your roof? And we tailored our program around people's biggest concerns. Most of them we gave a Starbucks card to or something to get them to talk to us. And we told them, we're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to understand. And we tailored our program around their resistance to hiring a contractor. And so your first worry when you hire a contractor is he wants to sell me up. And so our motto is don't buy a new roof and if you don't have to. And so if you can get the repair done now, extend the life of your roof, that's great. The other thing you need to know today is how long will my roof last and how much money do I need to start saving in order to take care of that at some point in the future when that comes about.
Very interesting. So when someone calls your office, what do you find is the most common asked question?
I think there's two big questions that people want to know. What is a tune-up? Because they hear our company name, and then what happens during our roof inspection. A lot of times people will call because they have a certain thing they're worried about. They have a concern about a certain area of their roof. But in our roofing inspections, we look at the whole roof, not just the area of concern. So we can give them a good picture of what it's going to take to extend that life of their roof.
Very good. So then we've been talking about maintenance, and we want to extend the life of the roof as long as possible. And I know that when we purchase a car, we usually get an owner's manual, and that has a maintenance schedule in there. So is there a maintenance schedule or something for a roof? Like how often should we inspect it?
So different areas of the country are different climates require different inspection intervals. In Southern California, generally, 5 years is a reasonable period of time. If your roof's in decent shape and you don't have anything on your roof that's compromising, like you don't have trees growing on it or anything like that, typically 5-year interval of inspection is a reasonable time for the roof itself. And if you clean the debris and seal and paint the pipes, or the flashings that are up there, the penetrations on the roof. If you have a tile roof, check for cracked tile or anything like that. If you have a shingle missing, at 5-year intervals, pretty typically you're going to be okay.
Very good. Okay. And I appreciate it. I don't know if you just mentioned it, but I know when we were talking before, you had mentioned about it's not recommended that owners go on roofs because it's better to hire a professional because it's a cheap way to prevent problems, right?
Yeah, most people don't need to be walking up on their roof. It's a dangerous place to be. And so we don't recommend that homeowners get up on their roof. We don't recommend that people put Christmas lights on their roof. It's just not a place where you want to be, where you could easily fall off, and falling off a roof is not a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I had actually another someone I know whose father was actually fell off while he was doing something, and he ended up in the hospital. So it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous.
Most roofers will tell you that they've fallen off too.
Oh my. So flashing, can you explain what flashing is?
Yeah, so anytime you have a penetration through your roof, for example, a plumbing vent pipe, wherever you have a bathroom or a kitchen, a sink or something like that, you're going to have a pipe, a vent pipe go up through the roof where your water heater is. There's a heater vent pipe that goes up through the roof. Your heater unit for your house has a pipe that goes through the roof. If your house has a fireplace, there's a chimney that goes through the roof. If you have a 2-story house, there will be a wall. There might be a wall intersecting a lower roof to a higher roof. Every one of those places where there's something going through the roof or an intersection of a roof, there needs to be some sort of a metal. Typically in Southern California, it's a piece of metal that connects that pipe or that protrusion to the roof itself. So that's called a flashing. And that flashing makes that penetration waterproof. So, if you have typically a shingle roof, the flashing will have an apron on it, and then it'll have a cone in the middle of it that goes around the plumbing pipe. It slides down over the plumbing pipe, and it goes into the shingle roof in a shingle fashion, so that water coming down the roof comes over the top of that flashing and continues to go down. And then where the cone is, you seal around that pipe so that any water that might be going down the outside of that pipe goes onto the top of the cone and down the flashing. And that would be the same thing for a chimney or a wall or anything like that. There's a metal that ties those two things together.
Okay, very good. Understood. So another question is, what about swamp coolers or air conditioners that are on top of the roof? What kind of effect does that have on the roof itself?
So swamp coolers are notoriously bad for leaking water. If they're brand new, they work pretty well. They get a little bit old and they start leaking pretty bad. And so that constant flow of water on the roof is not a good thing. Air conditioners too, a little lesser degree, but air conditioners too can create a problem with water on the roof. Plus the fact that you have somebody up there once in a while servicing your air conditioner. The more traffic you have on a roof, no matter what kind of roof it is, the more traffic you have on it, the more susceptible you are to wear and damage. In the case of an air conditioner, one of the big problems that we see in our business, in our inspection business, is there's condensation that comes off the air conditioner, and that condensation is supposed to go into typically a PVC pipe, and typically that PVC pipe will carry that condensation off of the roof, and it'll go onto the ground or into a gutter. Mm-hmm. If that's not maintained properly, often we see that pipe cut or broken at some point, and now you have that cold water going onto the roof, and that water is typically super cold because it's coming off of an air conditioner, and you're typically running your air conditioner when it's very hot. So you have super cold water being dumped onto a super hot roof, and those two temperature contrasts destroy the shingle. If you have a composition shingle roof, they destroy the shingle because there's just too much of a transition of temperature from hot to cold, and then it'll warm up and then it'll get cold again. So those are a couple of the things that if you have a unit of some kind on your roof, you might want to inspect your roof a little more often, and you might want to make sure that there's no water going onto the roof from the water cooler or the AC unit. And that's kind of contrary to normal thinking. People think, well, my roof is designed to shed water. But it's true, it is designed to shed water, but typically when it rains, the temperature difference between the water that's coming out of the sky and the temperature of your roof is not that drastic. And so you don't have that shock value or that shock treatment of the shingle. And the shingle will degenerate very fast with super cold water.
Very interesting. So then, like houses that have pine trees, I just saw this yesterday. I went to go show a home in Victorville, but there was a house that had a pine tree, and that pine tree had released needles. And so there were a lot of needles, in the valley. Is that called?
Yes, the two planes of the roof come together at an angle. Yeah, that's called a valley.
Yes. Okay, so, and it was filled with that as well. And then it also had gutters that were going around. So those are kind of things that should probably be cleaned out as well, right? To help maintain the roof and the home.
Yeah, so pine needles, any kind of debris, and we'll call pine needles debris, although they're healthy for the ground. Any kind of debris you have on your roof is a negative. If you have pine needles, those will collect dust. Dust over time, you get dust in the afternoon, you get dew in the morning. The dust of the afternoon that gets dew on it in the morning turns into mud. The next day there's more dust, and then there's more mud, and then there's more dust, and there's more mud. And pretty soon you have a cake, almost like concrete, built into that valley of the roof. And the moisture that comes down the valley with that caked on dust that's there starts running that moisture sideways. Now you have moisture going across the roof, not down the roof. And
Oh,
it's going to
wow.
go across the roof, and it's going to go underneath a shingle. And now you're potentially going to have a leak. And that dust and the moisture is going to create a situation that will deteriorate the shingle or whatever your roofing material is in that valley. So that's something you don't want to let develop. If you have a situation where and in your valley, in your gutter as well, you don't want pine needles to build up in your gutter. So if you have a pine tree or a ficus tree or any kind of tree that's dropping a lot of debris, then you want to have someone clean that off far more often. We have a homeowners association that we take care of their roofs, and we go to their facility every other month because of the trees that are around their facility that clog their roofs. They have flat roofs with roof drains, and they clog the roof drains constantly. We go every 8 weeks and clean it out.
Wow. Wow. You know, it just seems like there really is much that we as homeowners can do to help prolong the life of the roof, and by maintaining it and also giving it like that little tune-up, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Every 5
absolutely.
years? I'm sorry?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, so every 5 years, that's what you recommend, right?
At a minimum, every 5 years. But as you've pointed out, there are some situations where you might want to do it more often, depending on trees and shrubs and things of that nature. If you have a tree in your yard that has a branch that's rubbing on the roof, trim that back right away. You don't want anything rubbing on your roof.
Very good advice there. You know, and yet, even though we do all this maintenance, there will come the day when we need to re-roof the home. So let's talk about replacement. Before, you had spoken about an analogy. This was a couple, I don't know, last time we spoke, an analogy that the roof are like something specific. That, can you share that with us again?
Yeah, so I get asked all the time, how much does a new roof cost? And it's kind of like, I always say roofs are like shoes. What do you want? What do you want it to look like? And what do you want to get out of it? You can buy a nice pair of shoes for around $100, and you can buy a nice pair of shoes for around $1,000, depending on what you really, really want. And so, and with a roof, it has a little bit, there's an aesthetic value to roofing. There's been a lot of studies about the look of a house. Most people, if you ask them what kind of roof do they have, they won't be able to answer the question. But the same person will look at a house and say, oh, that house looks really nice. And it's because of the roof. They just don't necessarily relate that. Typically in studies, we've found that 70% of what you see when you look at the front of a house is the roof. So do you want a red roof? Do you want a white roof? Or do you want a brown roof? Do you want it to look like a farmhouse? Do you want it to look like an early California mission? Do you want it to look like something from the desert? All of those things depend on, with the kind of roofing you buy, kind of depend on what you want it to look like. And just like a pair of shoes. And then if you're really trying to get long-term, treatment out of it, that factors into the cost as well.
So what is the difference between tile versus shingles? Is one better than the other?
Simply no, but it goes back to what do you want? Tile is better if that's the look you're looking for. There's advantages to tile, certainly. A properly installed tile roof will last about 100 years, well over 75.
Wow.
I serve on the tile, there's a national association, it's the Tile Roof Institute, and they have a technical committee. I serve on that technical committee, and we work to write specifications and things for tile roofs. And if it's put on correctly with all of the right components, you can put a tile roof on your house and never think about it again, except for some minor maintenance. That said, we live in earthquake country, and the typical house would have about 40,000 pounds worth of material on the roof. So when an earthquake comes and your house is shaking, do you want 40,000 pounds over your head shaking? Some people say no. And a typical shingle roof of this, it would be somewhere around 10,000 pounds. Well, that sounds better to people, so there's positives and negatives to each type of roof. Tile roofs bring great value. They're beautiful. In Southern California, there's a curb appeal to a tile roof. People stand in front of a house and they see a tile roof and they say to themselves, that's a nice house. Oftentimes people look at a shingle roof, it's just a mindset for people typically in Southern California. Rest of the country, and we do work all over the rest of the country, you could look at a $5 million house and it would have an asphalt shingle roof on it and people would love it. So here, tile is just what people are drawn to. But they're all properly installed. They all will do what you want them to do.
That is really interesting. And I think that one of the difficulties with tile would be, like, let's say there's a 1980s home that has tile roofing, but now it has cracks in some of the tiles. How do you find material to replace that?
That could be a challenge. Many of the tile roofs that were put on in the tile started getting real popular in California in mid 80s. By 87 or 88, it was almost all tile. Prior to that, it was tile. The farther back you go, the less tile we were using. A number of the tile manufacturers that were active in the mid 80s are no longer in business. And so those tiles can be hard to find. Certainly repairable because we can harvest from the back and move some things around and make that work. The biggest problem with a tile roof is a tile roof is really two systems in one that make a roof. There's an underlayment that is put on before the tile goes on, and that underlayment has to be a complete roof. If there wasn't tile on it, it wouldn't leak. And then you put a tile roof over that, and that has to be a complete roof. And if there wasn't felt under that, it wouldn't leak. And then if you have both of those systems, you have a roof that's going to last you for 75 or 80 or 100 years. Wow. If you're missing part of that, then you got a problem. And in the 80s, the industry didn't really understand that much about it. And sad to say, a lot of houses were built by production builders who were looking for cheap. And so a lot of the underlayment that was used was substandard. And now we're 30 years later, the underlayment is rotten, and there's water going from the tile, underneath the tile to the roof, and the underlayment is rotten. And so the only way you can fix that is you have to take all the tile off, put new underlayment down, and then put the tile back down, and then you're good to go. And if you do that properly, you're good for, there's manufacturers that will stand behind that no leak warranty for 20 years on that. And our opinion is that it will last a lot longer than that. But
Wow.
it's just it's not a cheap process, but you have a good tile roof, you ought to try and keep it, and it'll last a long, long time.
You know, and that brings me to the next question that I have is like, how do we select a qualified contractor? You know, are
Well,
we,
that's easy. Just call me.
there you go. Just call Marty. That's right. Go roof tune up.
That's a great question, and a lot of people ask, just in general, how do you find a good contractor, whether it's a roofer or an electrician or a plumber or a concrete guy? How do you know which one is the right one? And you had mentioned earlier that there's an expression that people always look for. I want someone who's licensed, bonded, and insured. And it's interesting. The Better Business Bureau will remind you, if you're a member of the Better Business Bureau as a contractor, they'll remind you that the expression licensed, bonded, and insured is illegal. Contractor State License Board will not allow you to say that in advertising. The reason for that is if you're licensed, you by default are bonded, because you have to have a bond in order to have a valid license. So there's no news there. If you're licensed, you're bonded. And insured really doesn't mean anything. I could have insurance for my motorcycle and I could say that I'm insured. Doesn't mean that I have the insurance that I need to protect you as a homeowner. And so you're looking for a contractor who has general liability insurance, so that if he does something and burns your house down, you're covered. Most contractors don't have that. Legitimate, reliable contractors do have it. Most contractors aren't legitimate, reliable contractors. And so it's hard to weed through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might look at your homeowner's policy, and your homeowner's policy might tell you, oh, if the contractor burns your house down, we'll cover it for you. Well, then maybe you're not so worried about that. But it comes back to probably the best way to determine whether someone is a good contractor or not is the referral process. Ask someone who they've worked for. Find out if they've done a good job. Did they start on time? Did they finish on time? Did they keep things clean? Did they lie to anybody? Did they have a problem with money? Those are the kind of things that you need to know. And there's no real depository for all of that information. It's kind of a buyer beware with everyone. One of the things that I recommend that people do is call the contractor's supplier. Ask the contractor, who's your main supplier, or who are you going to use to supply the material for my house? Call those people. Ask them if they would give him a referral. Ask them if he pays his bill on time. Ask them if they have any issues with him, and then you can get a feel. You got to use your gut a little bit, but you can get a feel for whether or not he's a reliable contractor. If they're asking you for a lot of money up front, run. If they're asking you for a lot of money in the process, run. If they're willing to finish the job and get paid when they're done, they're probably a reliable contractor, because they recognize that they're not going to get paid until they finish the work and you're satisfied. If you start giving them money ahead of time, there's a good chance that you're not going to get finished what you wanted for the price that you thought you were going to get it finished for.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. And, you know, we had talked about also the importance of asking for maybe a certificate of insurance too, and see if they have general liability insurance.
Yeah, if they profess to have general liability insurance, and if it's important to you that they have general liability insurance, most definitely get a certificate that confirms what you're looking for. Another thing that we talked about, and I don't know if you don't have time to go into this, but one of my pet peeves is lien laws. Can I talk about that for a second?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So the biggest danger that homeowners have when they go into a contractual relationship with any kind of contractor is when they pay him, they have to confirm that the vendors who worked on their house have been paid. And in short, if a supply house, call it ABC Supply, delivers roofing material to your house, and roofer B puts a roof on your house, and you pay the roofer the day he finishes. If he doesn't pay ABC, ABC can go back after you, and you can have to pay for that material again.
That's amazing.
So
That's crazy.
I've been beating this drum for years. I think it's wrong. I think it's bad for the consumer. Nobody understands it from the consumer perspective, but the risk is great. One of the largest roofing contractors in California just filed bankruptcy, and he has homeowner jobs all over the state, and the homeowners are being sued by the suppliers for work that they paid him for, but they didn't get paid, and now they have to pay again. It's
My
unfair.
goodness. Yeah.
Be careful.
So what can a homeowner do to protect themselves, or what can they do for that, man?
When you see a delivery truck come to your house, and you see the name on the delivery truck, write the name down, get the phone number, call that company and say, you delivered material to my house, I want a release. And when you pay the roofer, tell the roofer, or anybody, any kind of contractor, when you pay him, tell him, I want a release from that supplier. I saw their truck here, I want a release from them. And he'll give you paperwork that says that these bills have been paid and you're free. If he doesn't, call the supplier. And if you can't get paid, if you can't get clarity, write a check to the company you have a contract with, and ABC Supply, or whoever the name of the company is. And now you're sure that company is not going to come after you. The other option is they have 20 days to notify you. So wait 20 days before you pay the bill. And if they haven't notified you, they have no rights. Do some research, but simply wait. If you can't get clarity, wait the days, make sure no one prelims your house, pay the bill, and you're done.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all that great information. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you to go roof tune-up, how would they get a hold of you?
Feel free to give me a call. You can call, text, email. My cell phone is 951-782-9615, and my email is eellison@gorooftune.com. So feel free to reach out anytime. Yes. Our website
go ahead, Emily, I'm sorry.
is gorooftune.com. So, and I was going to mention it's really best not to wait. We talk to a lot of homeowners that wait until they have a big leak or a big issue. And after our full inspection, they find out that they may have had a bigger issue than they were prepared to take care of. So the sooner you get your roof looked at and inspected, the better position you're in to know what to do in the next few years.
Excellent advice, Emily.
And our program, if a house is not in escrow or not for sale, our inspection with a full report, photos, all the data you need, our inspection is free. If a house is in escrow or for sale, we charge for that. If we do work on the house after that, we refund that money. But if you own the house and you're living in your house and you just want to know what it looks like, we'll do that for you for free. We'll give you a very complete report.
That sounds like a deal. Thank you so much, Marty and Emily, for joining me today, discussing all these different things about roofs. It was so informative. And thank you to everybody that was able to join in today as well. Please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with local housing info, trends, news, and more. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.